G'day, and welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. Today I want to do a video to answer a sort of a varying question. It goes from what's the most accurate rifle you've got, what's the best rifle to get, where do I find more accuracy, how do I make myself be as accurate as you, how long does it take to become as accurate as you are, all that sort of stuff. All these are fairly open-ended questions actually for someone who knows about firearms and that type of thing. And I suppose what I wanted to go through is probably do a two-part video to sort of explain a little bit of it, where the basics of understanding of some of the stuff comes from, and then ultimately where I've gone to find more accuracy. As for the question, one of those questions in there is how long does it take to become as accurate as you? Listen, how long's a piece of string? There is no answer to that. Some people are naturally, with the way their head works, with the way their natural skills are and that sort of thing, are going to do that very quickly, and very quickly ranges from 2 years to 10 years, and some people are going to spend their whole life and never get to that place, and everything in between. So let's, I suppose, go through the understanding of what we're talking about to start off with. One of the keys that a lot of people don't realise about firearms and about accuracy is that it comes actually from practice, obviously, but one of the keys of this is building confidence. There's all sorts of different ways of doing it, but it's actually building confidence when you need to do all the right things, for sure. Well, largely for most people. Some people can break all the rules and do very well, but largely you need to learn good form. You need to understand the basics and the fundamentals of things, but largely in all that process, all the practice is about, and whether you call it muscle memory or all the bits and pieces you can do, is actually confidence. Confidence is what some of the best shooters in the world, if they actually come down to what really won them that competition, what really won them that championship, that sort of things, yes, there'll be, whether it's a brand name or there's a talk about the new style of this, or it's the ammunition, or it's the effort they put in here, but ultimately the people who have stood back and really assessed it properly will come down to the fact that the confidence is an X factor that is hard to understand, but it is a very, very relevant feature. And I suppose this conversation goes a little bit into that. In the way of the part of that question of where should you start from, in the way of getting into firearms and things like that, well, I would start from it's the place which is going to teach you the most about build your confidence, but teach you the most in the fastest way it can. And generally, the thing that I still do the most shooting with, that Sam does the most shooting with, is a little toy like this. I shouldn't call it a toy. It's a 22 long rifle. So it is a little rifle that shoots around just like that little fella there. It's just a little, this is a CZ Farmer, the 513.
Sideways.
But it's a 22. So learning trigger control, learning follow through, learning form, all that sort of stuff. But lots of fun to use, can use it in all different forms, and very much with enough time. Inexpensive way to train, being the 22 long rifle, can shoot any of the 22 long rifle ammo, and does a great job. But that is, without question, the place to start. Regardless, it's the place to start. And if you don't have one, but you've got a 308 or you've got a 6.5 Creedmoor, or you've got whatever the rifle is, because it's the new best one and you bought that and you want to learn, then I can say with my hand on my heart that you can get a 22, you don't need to spend a lot, and do a whole heap of trigger time, and it'll make you better at shooting whatever it is you're shooting. If you've already got it, for sure, but I would say this is something that we'll still do hundreds of rounds a week with me and Sam, just in the way of having fun, but it's also just constant training of all sorts of training. It doesn't necessarily need to be this one. There's other 22s we've got in the family, but it's something that is a real value. But that's probably the confidence thing, the comfort thing, all the bits and pieces that create a better shoot is where it starts from. The next end of the equation I'd probably go to try and explain this a little bit in the way of building confidence and comfort and the understanding of what it does in the way of shooting side of things. I suppose enough trigger time and all the rest of it, you can get to where you get better at things. And then learning where to take yourself in the way of dealing with whether it's more recoil or it's a, I suppose, what am I trying to lead into? I'm trying to lead into a couple of rifles I've got here, which are a peculiar similarity while extreme difference when it comes to myself. This is a 45-70 in a Marlin lever action. And this is the 1895 is what this one is, the guide gun. I've extended the magazine so it holds a little bit more for what I was doing with it. It's got a little pocket on the back here for keeping ammo in it when I do it that way, and it's got a Skinner peep sight on it. This one also has, for all the people who ask, this has got the M94 ladder sight on it. This one I have shot out over a mile and managed to knock down the target. This is consistently several times shot at 1,000 yards and done that with iron sights. Now, why has it done this? One is something that I am fairly natural at doing. I always have been. Don't ask me why. That's just something that always surprises me when it happens so easily also, but it is the case of it. It shoots a round that looks like this one here, the 45-70. And listen, I'm also 6'4" and 220 pounds or 100 kilos, however you want to look at that. So I'm larger, but this thing should be, and most people would tell you that it's not very accurate over 50 yards, or there's people who are better at it and it's 200 yards. I find this thing really natural and easy to use, from the way it fits me, from the way I can aim at it. But actually part of what's going on here is it trains me, and I'm comfortable using it with recoil and all the rest of it, is the form I learnt out of my processes of shooting rifles meant that I'm not frightened of shooting it, I'm not yanking the trigger, I'm able to squeeze the trigger, I'm able to see things, and it makes it easy to shoot. Even for something old and tank-like with this horrible old in the way of engineering principles, and that's not horrible, it's a great round, don't get me wrong, but a crude style of bullet in a old black powder style cartridge, straight walled, all that sort of stuff, but I still find super easy and accurate to shoot. Now, I'm not saying this to everyone should be able to do that with the 45-70. What I am saying is that's much more about confidence in this rifle working well for me. It's nice, it's fun, but I've also shot it a lot. Literally I don't know exactly, to be honest, I've never added up, but it'll be well over 5,000 rounds is what I've actually fired through this thing. It shoots great, I like shooting it, and it's about confidence. I actually bring it up for a different instance. I bring it up because as much as recoil and all that sort of stuff it's got nothing like the thing that uses that. This one here. It's a 550 Safari, if I remember rightly, but basically that is the 505 Gibbs. And truthful, at this moment, this would be the least accurate rifle I've shot. Not because the rifle's inaccurate by any means. In every sense, that should be more accurate with the style of bullet, and even though we're coming up to 150 grains of powder and a ridiculously heavy recoiling thing to shoot. But the reason this is also in a better stock, it's nice, it's got nicer sights, it's a really lovely, lovely rifle. The problem I have with it is, well, two things. One, it's got a lot of recoil and I'm not that used to shooting it. So it certainly does create a little bit of anxiety when you're going to try and shoot accurately with something like this when you are getting up behind it and about to do things. The set trigger, okay, that's got its pluses and minuses to it. It turns into a very light trigger, and with a very high recoiling rifle, that isn't necessarily easy to use either. But that isn't its problem either. The problem is when I first went to shoot this rifle, I had done no load development. I didn't know what I needed to do. I needed to figure it out. A lot of powder, a 550 grain projectile to a 600 grain projectile, and I had to go through and figure it out. Now, I was a little cautious about how much powder I was going to put into to see what actually happened, but what I actually did with this one was I put in basically not enough powder. It still had a fair bit of kick to it, but it had a little bit too much room in there, so it ended up with a little bit of air pocket in the case. What I didn't realise, when you load 3 in the magazine and there was a little bit of air pocket, after I shot one, the powder will end up at the front of the case sometimes on them, and then the next time, a couple of times, it went click and nothing. It didn't fire because there was too much airspace. Another couple of times it went click, bang, about a second after I'd pulled the trigger. Now what I can tell you is when you've got something that's going to kick you very hard and you're waiting for it to kick and it gives you a hesitation on that type of thing, that builds anxiety like you wouldn't imagine. So when I went out the next time, I went and worked it all out and I got to that point and figured out those mistakes that I'd made, went with more powder, found a powder that worked, went with more powder so it was going to hit harder, but I knew it was going to fire. But the next time I went out, and the only other time I've been out, and I put this on at 600 yards, I put it on the steel. But you can see there's a fair bit of anxiety I'm managing to cope down. Now I'm still very experienced at being able to deal with things and do the right thing with the trigger and that sort of stuff. But I can honestly tell you the reason why this was still inaccurate for what it can be and what it will be when I calm down properly. But there was simply that anxiety thing. I had lost confidence in what was going to happen because it had scared me. It got to a point where you pull that trigger and it went click, then bang. So then you're waiting for who knows how long before it's going to punch you because you've got an unexploded firearm in your hand. It was that basically, I suppose, the point, apart from a bit of a funny story, I suppose, is that yes, at this moment, this one has been my least accurate rifle. And it had nothing to do with the rifle, a little bit to do with the ammunition, but I didn't make a mistake on that day when I actually shot it. It was just that I was anxious, so I was not fully in control of things. It was a lack of confidence that caused this to be less accurate. Put this one back down. And then to go to the other end of the scale, this is one I've just put together for Sam, which is put together with a lot of our bits and pieces, but all down that same thing. All down this building confidence. Now this is, I suppose, goes through a few details. This is a rifle that is a Tic Tac A1. I've actually set it up with a carbon fibre barrel in the 6BR. Now what I've done other bits and pieces. I've done stuff which I like to do, being a mechanic, an engineer, a bush mechanic, a hands-on engineer, whatever you want to call it. I do things and I've designed products over the time of what we do with things to make things easier and more comfortable to shoot. Sam also, as much as I'm very familiar and very confident and comfortable with single feeding for my rounds, which works for protecting the bullets, for all sorts of reasons I do that. But for Sam, being a shorter frame, it's harder for her reach. She isn't so comfortable single feeding the rounds. She wants to be able to stay on the rifle and just rack the bolt. So this rifle, with some upgrades, it's got an upgraded buttstock, it's got an upgrade with my bipod system and muzzle brake and bits and pieces on there. But the other feature is the 6BR. Super efficient 6BR, so 6mm bench rest. Super efficient round, set up where it will magazine feed, and then everything else done from good scope to good chassis to the whole lot. So very much about making it suit her, making it something that where she was comfortable with shooting it, where the rifle behaves really well, and all sorts of features, and I'll get into this in the next video and some of what our products are about. But this is really about this same thing. And you'll see that right through the channel on all the extreme precision ELR and ULR, so extreme long range and ultra long range that we do, where rifles are not just out of the box by any means. Little features for everything from barrels to muzzle brakes to rifle setup, and I'll get into that, like I said, a little bit more, but really about building confidence. The rifle isn't necessarily any more accurate in a one-shot situation. It's the confidence, you the shooter, that we want to improve. The consistency of the round and how that works, the consistency of the rifle, and really it's aimed all at taking something, although the rifle may be accurate, it's that bit that is not quite working as well. Whether it's jumping, whether there's a blast in your face, whether it's the trigger pull, whether it's the magazine, whatever it is that you find uncomfortable, making that comfortable, making that easier, making that nicer, will inherently build your accuracy, the rifle's accuracy, the whole lot works well together. It obviously also is involved with, you can't compare a modern, high efficient projectile with a really old projectile for efficiencies and consistencies, which will make more accuracy as well. But all these things work hand in hand. Anyway, I'll go into the next video now, which will explain a bit more about the bits and pieces. There's other ways of doing this as well, but we certainly built some products down that road. But really, this is much more about the general overview. And then, like I said, we'll see you in the next video. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll put some links down below for some things to go through of what I said on other videos. But glad you checked in, and we'll catch you next time.